My older sister Diana stood up at our father's 70th birthday with her wine glass and the same little pity smile she'd worn to 9 Thanksgivings, and she said, "We should all chip in to help Emma get out of that bakery job before she can't waitress forever, Em." 61 relatives laughed. My father didn't. My husband didn't laugh either. His hand found my wrist under the linen tablecloth and stayed there, warm and still. I watched my father, Frank, set his wine glass down on the long oak table he'd refinished himself in 1996. The sound was small. Glass on wood, the way he'd always set a glass down, gentle, exact, like he was placing a tool back where it belonged. Anyone else would have missed it. I heard it the way you hear your own name in another room. Diana was still standing. Pity smile widening. The cousins at the far end were already lifting their glasses. "To Emma," she said. "We love you. Let's get you out of that apron." The room laughed again, softer this time. My Aunt Helen nodded along like she was agreeing with the weather. I felt the cold thing settle behind my sternum that I hadn't felt in 9 years. Not anger. Something quieter. The thing that had bought a lake house 67 days earlier and not told a soul except the man who had just set his glass down. My sister did not know whose kitchen she was standing in tonight. The lie was 9 years old. I had let it live. The first time Diana called me the bakery girl out loud was at our cousin Rachel's engagement dinner in 2017. I had just signed a lease on my 4th location. I was 31. I remember the exact moment because I had the lease folder in my purse and I almost pulled it out. I didn't. I drank water and let her finish the joke. That was the choice. I made it once and then I kept making it, every year, at every dinner, every holiday, every christening. By the time I owned 12 locations across 3 states, the lie had a thickness to it. Correcting it would have required a performance. Standing up, listing addresses, watching their faces, I didn't want the performance, I wanted the bakeries. So I let Diana keep her version. Her version was that I had taken over a small storefront on Burnside after our mother died, and I'd been running it ever since, the way some women run a small storefront for 30 years and call that a life. Her husband Bradley, who sold commercial flooring, used to clap me on the shoulder at family events and ask if I needed help moving inventory. I would say, "No thank you." I would smile. I would go home and sign payroll for 342 employees. The only person who knew was my father. He had known since 2019 when I asked him to drive up to Seattle with me to look at a building. He had stood in the empty space on the 2nd floor and said, "How many of these do you have now, honey?" I told him. He had nodded the way he nodded at small things. Then he set his coffee cup down on the windowsill, that same gentle, exact sound, and said, "I won't say a word." He hadn't. For 7 years he hadn't. The practical stake was simple. My sister did not know whose kitchen she was standing in tonight. My father did. And in the next 10 minutes, I was going to decide whether the next person to know was Diana herself or 61 relatives at once. Diana was still talking. The toast had a second act now. "And we love her," she was saying. "That's why we want to help." My husband Tom's hand tightened on my wrist. I didn't move. I was listening to my father's glass, which was still set down. "I want to tell you something before this gets to where it's going." The first location was a storefront on Burnside. That part of Diana's story was true. I opened it 8 months after Mom died because I needed something that smelled like her kitchen on Saturdays. Sourdough, brown butter, the cinnamon she kept in a tin labeled in her handwriting. The second location came 2 years later because the first one paid for itself in 11 months and I had a banker who kept calling me back. The third came because a landlord in Beaverton offered me a corner space at a number that didn't make sense. The fourth was the one I almost showed Diana the lease for. By the 7th, I had stopped counting them as bakeries and started counting them as a company. By the 10th, I had bought the building that housed the flagship on Burnside. $2.1 million, paid out, no note on it. I signed the closing papers on a Tuesday afternoon and went back to work. This is the part people get wrong about quiet success. It is not a secret you protect. It is a room you stop inviting people into. After a while, the room is just where you live. The lake house was different. My father called me in April. He was crying. He doesn't cry. He said the lake house, Mom's lake house, where he proposed to her in 1976, where Diana and I had learned to swim off the dock, where Mom's kitchen still had the yellow tile she picked out, was going on the market again. The family that bought it from him in 1998 after the divorce was selling. He said he had driven past it that morning. He said the dock light was on. I asked him what he wanted. He said, "Nothing, honey. I just wanted to hear your voice." I hung up and called my cousin Rachel, who is a notary. I asked her if she could come over that night and witness a signature. She said yes without asking what for. The bid went in the next morning. I bought it for 1.4. I closed 67 days ago. I had not told my father yet. I was going to tell him tonight, after dinner, just the two of us, on the dock. That had been the plan. If you're still with me, stay close. The plan changed when Diana stood up. Diana was extending the toast. This is the thing about my sister. She has a sense for the room the way some people have a sense for weather. When a joke lands, she pushes it. When the family laughs, she takes the laugh and stretches it into a position. By the time she was 30, she had figured out that pity is the most powerful currency in a family, because no one argues with it. You can't push back against someone trying to help you. Seriously, she was saying, we were talking about this in the car on the way up, Bradley and I. We think between all of us, we could, get Emma into something with benefits, a real career path. Helen, my aunt, was nodding harder now. We just love you, sweetheart. Bradley raised his glass from the other end of the table. He didn't say anything. He nodded once, the way men nod when they've decided to let their wives carry a thing. I watched the table tilt toward Diana. 61 relatives, slowly, like sunflowers. The cousins, the in-laws, the second cousins who flew in from Phoenix, all of them turning toward the woman with the pity smile and the wine glass and the kindest cruelty in 3 states. Tom's hand was still on my wrist. He was looking at his plate. He knew not to look at me. He knew that if our eyes met right now, I would not be able to keep my face still. I let my eyes travel down the table instead. Rachel was sitting near the kitchen door. My cousin. The notary. The one who had driven over at 9 at night in April with her stamp in her purse and not asked me a single question while she watched me sign. I had asked her something earlier that afternoon when we were setting up chairs on the lawn. I had asked her if she would do me a favor at dinner. I had told her what the favor was. She had said yes, the same way she had said yes in April. Her eyes were already on me. She had been waiting for me to look at her. She lifted her chin half an inch. The phone in her lap was already in her hand. Diana, still standing, was saying, "And we love her. That's why we want to help." My father set his glass down again. This time he stood up. My father is 70 years old. He stands the way men of his generation stand, slowly, with one hand on the table edge, taking a second to find his knees. He is not a tall man. He is not a loud man. He has the kind of presence that arrives in a room about 3 seconds after he does, the way a draft arrives. The table went quiet, not all at once, in waves. Diana noticed last because she was still inside her own sentence. "Diana, honey," my father said. His voice was soft. "Sit down." She sat down. She did it fast, like a child. He looked around the table. He looked at his sister Helen, who suddenly found her water glass interesting. He looked at Bradley, who was holding his wine glass at half-mast like he'd forgotten what to do with it. He looked at the cousins from Phoenix. Then he looked at me. "I think," he said, "you should give the next toast, honey." I stood up. There is a thing that happens in your body when you have been waiting 9 years to stand up. It is not adrenaline. It is something slower. Your hands go cool. Your shoulders drop. Your voice, when it arrives from somewhere lower in your chest than usual. I had felt it 3 times before in my life. Signing the lease on location 4. Watching Rachel notarize the bid in April. Standing on the dock of the lake house alone, 67 days ago, with the deed in an envelope. Tom's hand left my wrist. He let me go on purpose. The table was looking at me now. 61 faces. Diana's pity smile was still there, but it had a small crack in it, around the eyes. She didn't know what the crack was yet. She was about to. I'm going to step out of the scene for 1 second. If you've ever sat at a table like this one, if you've ever let a lie about you live for years because correcting it costs more than carrying it, you already know what I'm about to do. You don't need me to explain it. Stay with me through the next part. The kitchen is what I need you here for. I lifted my glass. Before I make my toast, I said, I want to give everyone a quick tour of the house. Diana laughed. It came out wrong, half a sound, cut off when no one joined her. What? A tour, I said, of the house. It'll take 10 minutes. Bring your drinks. I started walking before anyone could form the second question. This is the part I want you to see. Not hear, see. I want you to see 61 relatives in birthday clothes getting up from a long table on a back lawn at dusk, holding wine glasses and bourbon glasses and one toddler, and following a woman they thought was a bakery employee toward a house most of them hadn't been inside since 1998. I led them off the lawn, across the gravel path, past the boathouse my father had built in 1981 with his own hands, the one with the green door my mother painted the summer Diana was born, down to the dock. The dock light was on. I had turned it on at 4 o'clock that afternoon and not told anyone why. This dock, I said, got new pilings in March. Nobody understood yet. They were just following. Up the dock stairs, onto the back porch. Through the screen door my mother used to slam on her way in from the garden, into the mudroom, past the row of hooks where she used to hang her sun hat. Diana was 3 people behind me. I could feel her trying to catch up without running. Into the kitchen. Yellow tile. The tile Mom picked out in 1979. The cabinets. Dad sanded down in 1985 because she said the varnish had gotten too dark. The window over the sink that looks out at the dock and the lake and, at this hour, the dock light. I stopped in the middle of the kitchen and turned around. 61 relatives crowded in behind me and spilled into the dining room. I looked at my father. He had walked the whole tour with one hand on the back of his neck, the way he walks when he's trying not to feel something in public. "Dad," I said, "when was the last time you stood in this kitchen?" His mouth worked for a second before the answer came out. 1998. I want to tell you what happened in the room at that moment. Nothing visible, no gasp, no one cried. The family understood the shape of something before they understood the thing itself, which is how families always understand the worst news and the best news. Helen's hand went to her mouth. Bradley said, "Wait." Diana said nothing. She was looking at my father's face. "M." Diana's voice was thin. "M, what is this? It's a tour, Di." "No." "What? What are we doing here? Whose house is this?" The cousins from Phoenix were starting to figure it out. You could see it move through the room in a slow ripple, person by person, the way understanding moves through a crowd when no one wants to be the first to say the word out loud. Bradley stepped forward. He had that particular face on, the one he wore at family events when he was about to manage something. "Let's not make a scene, okay? Frank, you all right?" My father didn't answer him. He was still looking at the window over the sink. "Bradley," I said, "stand where you were standing." He stood where he had been standing. Rachel had moved. She had moved during the tour, quietly, the way she did everything. She was now standing next to the small television my mother had insisted on putting in the kitchen in 1992 because she liked to watch the morning news while she made bread. The television was off. Rachel had her phone in her hand. She was looking at me. Diana was still holding her wine glass. It was half full. Her knuckles on the stem had gone white. "M," she said again, and now there was a different note in it, not confusion, the beginning of fear, the kind of fear that arrives a full second before you know what you're afraid of. "M, what is happening?" I looked at Rachel. I nodded. Rachel cast the screen from my phone to the television. The deed came up first, a scan of the recorded copy from the county. Top of the page, the property description, the parcel number, the address everyone in the room had grown up driving to in the summer. Halfway down, the buyer. My name, Emma Margaret Foster. Recorded date, 67 days ago. The kitchen got very quiet. I let it stay quiet for a count of 4. I had thought about this for 67 days, and I had not pictured what I would say. I had only pictured the kitchen and my father's face and the count of 4. I looked at my father. "I bought it back for you," I said. 67 days ago. He put his hand flat on the kitchen counter to steady himself. He didn't say anything. He didn't have to. His mouth went into the shape it goes into when he's trying not to cry in front of his daughters and failing. Diana's hand went to her throat. The wine glass in her other hand tipped. Tom, who had moved to stand near her without my noticing, caught it before it spilled. Bradley said, very quietly, "The bakery? Wait." I reached into the canvas tote I had set down by the kitchen island when we walked in. I pulled out a manila folder. I set the folder on the counter next to my father's hand. "This is the lease," I said, "on the building the flagship is in. The flagship is the one on Burnside. I bought the building in 2022, $2.1 million. I own the other 11 locations outright, 12 total, 3 states." Diana made a sound that wasn't a word. We didn't know. I know you didn't, Di. We were trying to help. I know what you were trying to do. She took a step toward me. The pity smile was gone. Her face was working through the thing faces work through when 9 years of a story collapse in 8 seconds. Please. I didn't, Bradley and I. We thought, Diana. My father's voice. Quiet. The kitchen pivoted toward him. Sit down, honey. She didn't have a chair. She set the wine glass down on the counter next to my folder. The glass made a small, exact sound on the granite. Glass on stone, not glass on wood. The wrong kitchen sound. She heard it. I watched her hear it. She put her hand to her throat again and left it there. My father turned to me. He didn't hug me. He has never hugged me in front of people. He held out his right hand the way he had held it out across the diner table in 2019 when I told him about the Seattle building. He shook my hand, slow and exact, in front of 61 relatives in his kitchen. He said, "Thank you, honey." His voice almost went. He blinked twice, fast, and got it back. I felt my own hands start to shake, actually shake, the way they had not shaken in 9 years of dinners. I set my wine glass down on the counter because I wasn't sure I could hold it. I felt my breath catch behind my collarbone. I felt my eyes start to do the thing I had decided they would not do. I looked at my father's hand, which was still holding mine, and I made myself take one breath in through my nose and one breath out. I held it together. Barely. I'm telling you barely because I want you to know it cost something. Then I let go of his hand and I turned to the room. That's the tour, I said. Dinner's still warm. 6 months later, Bradley's tour guide line at family events had become the quiet joke nobody said to his face. I heard it third hand from Rachel, who heard it from her sister, who heard it from one of the Phoenix cousins. Bradley, the tour guide. Diana didn't call me for 4 months. When she finally did, in February, she left a voicemail that started with, I don't know how to, and ended without finishing the sentence. I have not played it a second time. I have not deleted it either. My father moved back to the lake house that summer. He has a chair on the dock now, the same kind he had in 1996, and he sits in it most mornings with coffee. He told me in July that he sleeps better in that house than he has slept in 27 years. The August after the birthday, I brought my daughter Grace to the kitchen for the first time. She is 4. She stood on the yellow tile in her bare feet and looked up at the window over the sink and asked me whose house this was. I told her it was Grandpa's. I told her it had been her grandma's first. I told her that someday, if she wanted it, it would be hers. She nodded the way 4-year-olds nod, which is the same way my father nods at small things. I haven't seen the pity smile since. There's a line my sister used at every Thanksgiving for 9 years. She used to say it like a joke. You can't waitress forever. She used it at the toast too, right before Dad set his glass down. I've thought about it a lot since that night. I think she had it wrong, and I think she had it wrong on purpose, because the wrong version was easier for her than the real version. The real version is this. I wasn't waitressing. I was building a kitchen. And I built one big enough for my father to come home to. If you've made it this far, you already know how this story ended before I told you. You knew it when Dad set his glass down. So let me ask you to do one small thing on your way out. There's another story on this channel, a woman who let her brother run her name into the ground at every family dinner for 6 years before she walked into his office on a Tuesday morning with a folder of her own. If that's the kind of story you stay for, hit subscribe and ring the bell so the next one finds you. I'll see you at the next table.